I'm sure at some point in time I've talked to every one of you, and I haven't gotten to meet you face to face. I sure hope that I can. I recognize many of your faces, but some of them, again, I know that we've talked and I don't know you and haven't met you face to face. What I do want to do today is make sure that you also know other folks that are on the communication staff, so that if you have questions about specific areas, then you know who to direct those to. And if I can't get those, you also know who you can go to. I want to introduce Justin Pauley, who is over here. Justin deals specifically with our State Board of Education, and also helps with day-to-day communications issues that are state-based. And the reason I say state-based is because John Rogers is on our staff, and he leads communications for Race to the Top specifically. So if you have Race to the Top questions, and again, I know many of you have already talked to John, you've been able to direct those questions to him, but he deals with Teresa and Kathy and all of those folks that I think you heard from this morning. Deals with. What I mean by that is Teresa's so great that he gets to hang out with her all the time. But anyway, so if you have questions of us and they are specific to that, I want to make sure that you know who to direct those to. I do want to leave it open to a couple of questions. We only have about 10 minutes each, and I don't want to steal any time from Jay McCarthy, our Teacher of the Year, because he's awesome and he has a lot better things to say than I do. So, but one thing I did want to mention, and I can't show it, but we've got a new website that we are going to be getting online hopefully in the next month and a half or so. We're doing a soft rollout right now internally so that we can work out some of the bugs, find things that are incorrect and things of that nature. And those of you who've rolled out new websites, you're well aware of the challenges that you can face with that. But what I think you'll, I've heard it for the 6.5 years I've worked here, is how busy and hard to find everything is on our website, and I couldn't agree more. It's very hard to find stuff. It's just over time, I think we've gotten used to finding where everything is. Yeah, well, it's a little bit of it's on purpose, but no. But this website is, at least the homepage, is going to be much cleaner. It will separate things by the groups that we deal with, students and parents and external community, business, and other educators that will fall in that group. But I think the thing that you will appreciate the most, the thing that I think I might appreciate the most, because after a while I won't have to walk you through every step, because again, I know that this website that we have right now is very difficult to find anything, and it takes walking through it if you don't deal with it every day, is that we will finally have a search engine that works. Our search engine right now online is really a search engine that takes you to documents, which is not very helpful if you're looking for particular pages. So if you're looking for AYP in the search engine, you'll actually be able to type AYP and it will get you to the page that you're looking for. If you're looking for something very specific, it will take you to that. The data portion, which I think is where I get most calls, trying to find enrollment and free and reduced lunch and all those kinds of things, will still be under a data reporting element, but again, it will be searchable, so you will actually be able to find that when you search that. As soon as we have that functioning, I would like to, I'd love to be able to send that out to a couple of you guys, and be able to search around and find out what doesn't work for you, because you use that as much as anybody else, really. So with that, I'm gonna, I know I have like 5 minutes to take questions now, and if you don't have any questions really, then I'll turn that over to Jay. But again, I want you to know that we will respond as quickly as we can to questions. We're fewer than we used to be over time. Email always works great, and if you do not have my email address, please let me know. I'll give you cards. If you don't have email addresses for John or Justin, we'll make sure you have that contact information. But so we try to get back to you as quickly as we can. Email works great. So any questions? Awesome.
Hey, Let me
I
mention.
love that.
Teresa
John has a question.
I don't have a question, I have a statement. Teresa mentioned our Race to the Top website. It is separate from the DOE. It is rt3ga.com. So we got that up in December. We're adding content to it all the time, from latest news stories to scopes of works on the districts to state scope of work. So rt3ga.com is the website. But if you have any other questions outside of that, feel free to email me. All our contact information is in too.
Good point. Superintendent Barge will be speaking at, we flipped the time, he'll be speaking at 1:30, 1:35. So if you have specific policy related questions, he can answer those. But now I want to introduce Jadon McCarthy, our current Teacher of the Year. I'm not going to read his whole bio. Y'all probably have some information on him, but what I want to say about him that I thought was so cool when he won is hearing his philosophy, which gets to what his background is. You know, he's an attorney. He went through law school, UGA, and when he finished, he pretty much decided that instead of putting kids behind bars, he wanted to keep them from getting in jail, and it's a testament to what he does day in and day out and what he's done with a lot of his kids and what they've said about him. So without further ado, I'll introduce Jay McCarthy.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I want to say that it is my pleasure to be the 2012 Georgia Teacher of the Year. It is an honor that I would have never dreamed of having when I first started teaching. As Matt said, I've had a number of careers. I worked in corporate America. I went to law school, graduated law school. I worked in the legal community. And as I look back, one story often comes to mind as I think about education. And it was a story that I learned when I was at United Parcel Service. And UPS's headquarters is out in Sandy Springs. And I don't know if any of you have ever been there, but it is opulent. It's a beautiful facility, hard wood grain floors, oak paneled cubicles. And out in the districts of UPS, they call it the Parcel Palace. And it's called the Parcel Palace because of the opulence that's there. But at the end of the day, one of the philosophies that they have in the districts is that regardless of what happens at the Parcel Palace, packages still have to be delivered. And so that kind of focused my attention on the fact that UPS's core job is to deliver packages, moving a package from a customer to an end place. And in education, I think we have a core function. In fact, I know we have a core function. And our core function is the education of students. Throughout this year, I've had the opportunity, the privilege, and the pleasure to go around the state and meet wonderful teachers. And as a Teacher of the Year, I'm their representative. I am the embodiment of the thousands of teachers in Georgia who wake up every morning focused on the core competency of education in this state, to provide our students, our children, with the best possible education. But the sad part is that a lot of our teachers are kind of downtrodden. They are kind of disgruntled. And the reason why is because they feel that a lot of times the focus is taken off of what they do and is focused on the things that they don't do. Education, for those of you all who have never stepped into a classroom, is a difficult job. And anyone who leads you to believe that educating a student is easy is fooling you. If I could walk into a room and put a book on a child's desk and tell them to learn the material in the book, then there would be no need for me. My job is to take that information, take that knowledge, and to put it into a form that that student can take it in. Over the last few years, we have dealt with austerity cuts in the state of Georgia, and I think Herb spoke on those. From a teacher's perspective, basically what we are being told is that you need to do more with less. And that sounds like a great philosophy, do more with less, but it also presupposes that you weren't doing the most you could with what you had in the first place. As if to say that you can take fewer resources and make more out of them. It's a great thought process. It sounds good. As Herb said, it's a great bumper sticker. But in practice, does it really work? I'm a teacher in Bibb County. I teach at Northeast Magna High School. And if you ever looked up Northeast academic credentials, you would find that it doesn't rank in the top 15, 20, 30 schools, 30% of schools in Georgia. In fact, Northeast is designated as a school improvement grant school, meaning that we are in the bottom 5% of high schools in Georgia. But I know for a fact that I wake up and I go to work with teachers who desperately want to see their students improve. I don't wake up and go to school with teachers and work with teachers who say that they don't care about students. I don't wake up and go to school with teachers who say that they're not there to do their job. The teachers at Northeast, by and large, are dedicated to the proposition of educating our children. For whatever reason, we're not reaching them like we should. They're not learning the way they should. But the question is that solely a result of teacher effort? In education, whenever it comes down to improvement, the onus is always focused back onto the teachers. How do we make the teachers better? What do we do to improve the teachers? In fact, I read the AJC blog a lot, and it boggles my mind the number of people who say that teachers whine, teachers complain, teachers are looking for excuses. I know for a fact that's not the case. People tell me teachers should be happy. You all get summers off and vacations off, and what other government job do you know where you get great benefits and summertime off and Christmas off and all those things? Teachers need to stop complaining. Get a job in the real world. We work in the real world. We're the foundation and basis of everything that happens in the real world. I have students who come to me every day who go to bed at night with no electricity. Students who wake up in the morning hungry because the last time they ate was at lunch the previous day. I have children that witness domestic violence at home. But the public thinks that my job as an English teacher is get this child to understand Beowulf. Get this child to read William Shakespeare and understand the brilliance and the literary genius of the Bard of Avon. That kid doesn't care about that. That kid cares that they're in a room with heat. This kid cares that they're in a room with someone who cares. And the reality is there is no standardized test that can measure that. There is no standardized test or measurement that will say, Mr. McCarthy made a difference in this child's life because he kept him off of the street. There is no measurement, no evaluation, no survey that's going to be able to quantify what the thousands of teachers in this state do every day. Our job goes beyond the transmission of information and knowledge. Our job involves the creation and the building up of a human being. I know that because there was a time in my life when I wasn't expected to do much. I didn't grow up with a silver spoon. In fact, I don't think I grew up with any spoon. I didn't grow up with my mother. I didn't grow up with my father. I grew up raised by my grandparents. And neither of them had completed high school. But it was their work and the work of the teachers who worked with me that brought me to where I am today. So when Bill asked me to speak and he wanted me to talk about what are my views as a teacher, what have I done as I've gone out throughout the state, I found that our teachers are tired. They're tired of being put down. They're tired of being focused on as the sole problem in an educational system that, quite frankly, is not where it should be. I serve on the State of Georgia Education Finance Commission. I'm on Senator Jack Hill's subcommittee, and our subcommittee is charged with the revamping of the quality basic education formula. But when you think about QBE, listen to what the name of it is, quality basic education. We're focusing on the basics. We're not focusing on taking children to the next level. Technology is one thing that we talk a lot about. And I often think if you want to go through a time warp, if you want to walk through a door and step back 20 to 25 years, the one place you can do that most times is in a classroom. Why do I say that? If you walked in a classroom in 1985 and walked in a classroom in 2012, you would very likely see the exact same thing. Children in rows of desks, a teacher in front of the room. Yeah, you may have a whiteboard versus a chalkboard. Yeah, you may have an electronic projector versus an overhead projector. But fundamentally, the classroom is the same. But yet, our children are different. Our children have grown up with cell phones, iPads, iPods, computers. They learn differently, they see the world differently, but we are being forced to educate them in a method and manner that is wholly inconsistent with the world in which they live today. People view technology as an add-on. It would be great if you could teach and add technology on. Unfortunately, preparing our students for the 21st century and beyond, technology is not an add-on. It's an essential part of what we need in our classrooms. Teachers need all the support we can get. Are we perfect? No. Are we where we want to be? No. But I'm convinced that the teachers in this state want to be better. I'm convinced that they want to see their students succeed. But it takes everyone to move to that point in time. We need the support of our parents. We need the support of our board members, our superintendents. We need the support of the media, the community, to build up education and not tear us down. I stand as a proud representative of the teachers of this state because I know that every day they wake up with the desire to take children from the bottom and move them to the top. I'm excited about the things and the changes that are occurring in this state, but we must keep in mind there are no magic bullets. There will be no secret cure to what ails education. It will take a steady improvement from everyone to see us get better. Our principals have to get better, our superintendents have to get better, our boards have to get better. We as a society and the community must get better. The only way that this state and this country will improve is if our schools improve. There will be and there is no better investment of our time, our effort, and our finance than to see that our students have more than just a quality basic education, but that they have a quality excellent education. Any questions? Yes.
You were mentioning just how people criticize teachers, and when you were talking about the social issues at your school, a lot of the schools in Richmond County, where we are in Augusta, deal with similar things. And what about parent involvement? And what about the role parents should play in their kids' education? And are you seeing them play a role?
Well, and here's the thing. I think that in a perfect world, parental involvement is key. We must have our parents involved on some level. But I also think there's a difference between parental involvement and parental engagement. You want to have your parents engaged in their children's education. But as a teacher, I am the educational professional. I am the educational expert. It's my job to move that child forward. And sometimes I kind of go back and forth with the parental issue because my grandparents, they couldn't sit down with me and help me with my homework. By the time I got to 7th or 8th grade, I had surpassed the math that they had done. So as a teacher, I have to find a way to move my children forward by any means necessary. It'd be great to have parents involved, but some of our parents work hours that are beyond belief. I mean, they're working 20 hours a day, if you can believe that. And some of our kids even find themselves working those type of hours in addition to going to school. So to answer your question, yes, we need as many parents as possible. Sometimes we need parents of children, we need parents that aren't even the parents of the kids. Just positive adults who care are what our children need in order to push them forward.
Speaking from a parent who just did a diorama in a shoebox last night for my child. Sorry. But I commend the state for picking you, because you're the first teacher of the year that I haven't seen this Pollyanna vision of how wonderful education is. I love that you're just being very honest about what it's like in the streets, at the street level. You know, this is a view from the classroom. I love that. So my question is, what you said kind of is a little bit in conflict with what we've heard all morning about this wonderful teacher evaluation. I'd like to know how do you vision, what is your view of an effective teacher, and how is that evaluated?
Well, one of the things that I think about often is that as a teacher, it's my job to evaluate my students. It's my job to know which students are performing, which students are not, and to help move them forward. It's also my vision and my philosophy that that should be expanded outward and upward to the teaching profession. And people who've heard me, I've said this before, if the teacher is the biggest influence in a child's growth and performance, then in my opinion, a principal is the biggest influence in a teacher's growth and performance. A principal should know what teachers are doing what in their school. It's funny when I hear principals say how big their plate is. Teachers' plates are just as big, if not bigger. So if a teacher is tasked with figuring out all the things that a child needs to do to grow and identifying those students, I think the building level principal should be the primary factor in determining who in his or her building is performing on a competent level or not. And then not only identify that, but find ways to help them grow. Putting a teacher on a PDP is cute. It's one of those things that is a paperwork thing. Okay, I'm gonna put this teacher on a PDP. But when does a principal decide, okay, you're not teaching or instructing class like I think you should, let me come into your room and show you how to instruct. Let me come into your room and show you what a good teacher should be. When we move to that level, I think you're gonna see a much more meaningful growth as far as teachers and their instruction, which is the fundamental issue I think we're having, instruction.
We don't have to cut this off, I'm sorry. Jay's a wonderful spokesperson for our teachers. Let's give him a round of applause. The few of you I've not met, I'm Steve Dollinger, I'm president of the partnership. And as Bill and Diana said, we really appreciate you being here. It's always our pleasure to do this every year, and it's good to see some of you are coming back again. It's good to see some new faces too. Let's move along with our program this afternoon, and as Diana had mentioned, Superintendent Barge and Commissioner Cagle have flip-flopped on the positions this afternoon, and Barge will be in a few minutes. But as you can see in the top 10, once again, the importance of early learning, pre-K, is in that top 10. Commissioner Cagle has come in and really taken the leadership of this and moving it forward. As we say in there, we were chagrined that we were not able to get that grant this year to help him with his work, but he is focused on that and still determined to carry that flag forward. So to hear a little bit more about that work and to give you a chance to ask him a question, here's Commissioner Bobby Cagle.
Thanks, Steve. Steve, I have to say though, and I think I may speak for Dr. Barge, that the use of the word flip-flop to describe what we're going to do today, I don't know if that's good or not. Thank you very much, and we do appreciate the opportunity to be with you today. Actually, it's just a video, so you just want that one? Just the video, yes. It's always a great opportunity when you get to talk to folks who report on the work that we do. And you know, it's very important work, and we think, of course, as every other segment of education, that ours is most important because in our estimation, this is the foundation for what children will do in their academic careers from this point forward. The statistics show that that is true, and it shows that children that participate in early childhood education, quality programs, actually do better at every level of learning. They are more likely to read on grade level. They're more likely to graduate high school, more likely to go to college, more likely to have a good job. And so it's vitally important that we provide them with the very best that we can. The other thing that we know from a lot of research that's gone on over the last several years is that the brain develops very quickly. By the age of 3 years old, a child's brain has developed by 75% of its total capacity. By 5 years old, that's 90%. And so I've had a couple of parents, when I've said that have children that are 2 or 3 years old who get a panicked look on their face. And really and truly, for all of us, that is a clarion call. We have to give them what they need at an early age. There is a video that can say this very succinctly and much better than I can. This comes from the Harvard Center on the Developing Child. It's called Brain Hero. I want to play that real quickly for you, and then I'll continue on with my presentation.
What if you could take action to reduce crime, improve health and education levels, increase family incomes and state revenues, and improve the quality of life in communities throughout your state? Where would you begin? Science tells us that we may find the solutions to these complex social problems in early childhood, when the architecture of the brain begins to form. Brain architecture is built over time and shaped by experiences, starting in the earliest years of life. The most important experiences come from the environment of relationships that interact with each child: parents, extended family, and caregivers of all kinds. But serious adversity early in life can disrupt healthy brain development. Both brain architecture and behavior are increasingly difficult to change as individuals get older. So what happens early matters for a lifetime. Now imagine you can take action to improve the lives of children and the quality of life in this community. Where and when would that action be most effective? The links between policy, parenting, and brain architecture become much more clear when we can see how formative events and family and community environments affect child development. For example, policymakers want to make their communities safer, or improve children's learning, or reduce the cost of chronic health problems. A child raised in this environment may experience lower levels of stress and more opportunities for learning. That leads to sturdy brain architecture and a healthy stress response system, which prepare the child to achieve higher levels of literacy and other skills early in life, and later leads to improved school achievement and decreased dropout levels. Positive early experiences can also reduce levels of obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. Increased health and education levels can have positive effects across society, like reduced crime and increased income and tax revenues. Policies affect both individuals and communities, so making wise choices that support early brain development can improve health, behavior, and learning throughout life.
I thought that when I saw it was just the best explanation of why early childhood is important that I've seen. And we take this very seriously. We take this as the challenge before us, and we cannot allow children to have less than a top quality of experience in early childhood education. So as a policymaker, where do you start with that? I have to tell you that for me, I have a background in child protective services. I have spent most of my career either as an administrator of a system or as a CPS worker. And so safety of children for me is first and foremost. And I think early childhood professionals now agree that before you can work on quality, you have to assure that you are taking care of the health and safety of the children in the facilities. If you don't do that, your end result does not matter. And so therefore, we're working on that very closely. Over the first year as commissioner, this has been one of our primary focuses. The efforts that we've made in that area are several. First, we worked with the legislature last year to include a bill that allows me the opportunity, or any commissioner coming after me, the opportunity to close any facility in the state where a child's health or safety is at imminent risk of danger. So that is an important thing that we've done, and I've already used that one time. We use it very judiciously, but it's something that we needed in order to be able to take emergency action. Otherwise, we had to wait for a long administrative process where the facility remained open and they could continue to care for children, continuing to put them at risk. So we're very happy that that was something the legislature and the governor decided to enact for us. We also, in response to a tragedy last summer, enacted emergency transportation rules. These rules were not brand new. We have had transportation rules regarding how you transport children in early care settings for many, many years. The difference is that we have now gone back, revised those, strengthened them in our estimation, even beyond the very strong policy that we had before, to try to assure that providers are following the procedures that will allow them to safeguard children as they're transporting them. We also commissioned the first study in 20 years of our licensing and monitoring system. I went to some of the folks at the National Association of Child Care Resource and Referral Agencies. A lady named Linda Smith was the executive director back then. Some of you may recognize her name. She is now, I think, an assistant deputy secretary at the Department of Health and Human Services in D.C. I went to her and asked her for a recommendation on how we could approach the reform of our licensing and monitoring system. She recommended to me that we hire a gentleman named Richard Feeney. He is a person who has spent 30 years of his career looking at licensing and monitoring systems across the United States in a statistical manner to predict those things that will make children more safe in centers. He's going to be working with us over the next 2 years in order to make sure that we have the very best system possible. We're very excited about that. It's very important because we have more than 7,000 facilities in this state of one type or another. We also have a licensed capacity of 375,000 children, and that's not counting our pre-K kids. So we are dealing with the very most precious commodity that Georgia has in those facilities, and we've got to make sure that our licensing and monitoring process is one that we can count on to do the job. We've also seen over the past 4 years a dramatic increase in the rate of compliance of facilities around the state. 4 years ago, there was a non-compliance rate of 28% in facilities around the state. I'm very happy to say that as of today, we're on track for this fiscal year to have a 10% non-compliance rate. So we have more than cut that in half. Are we satisfied? Absolutely not. I'm not going to be satisfied till we have every single center in the state fully compliant, and that's our goal every day. Moving on to Georgia's pre-K program, this of course is one of our most proud accomplishments as a state in my estimation, because pre-K is so important. Pre-K in this state started nearly 20 years ago. We're actually in the 19th year of the pre-K program in this state. We are serving just shy of 84,000 students this year in classrooms all around the state. I think we have 3,900 plus classrooms in this state. This program is so important, and the quality of it is so important because it can make or break a child's performance when they go to kindergarten. It's good preparation for that. And I talk to kindergarten teachers all around the state as I travel about how they can tell the difference between a child who's had pre-K experience and one who has not. Our goal is to make sure that those children get in there and get prepared and have the best chance possible for academic success as they grow older. A couple of things that we've done in this area this year that we're excited about. We have worked with DOE on a project, and Teresa, I think, may have touched on this earlier, where we are looking at professional development models for our pre-K teachers. These are based on the work of Dr. Bob Pianta at the University of Virginia, and we're testing these to determine what is the most effective and most cost-effective way of doing professional development with our pre-K teachers, so that we have the very best teachers in front of the students in these pre-K classrooms, and thereby getting the best bang for our buck in our lottery dollars. The other thing that we have never had in this state is a longitudinal study of the entire pre-K system. We commissioned that last year with the help of the legislature and the governor. By the end of this year, we will have the initial data that will allow us to tell you from beginning of a pre-K school year to the end of the pre-K school year what kind of progress children make on average. That is a statewide representative sample, and so it's being conducted by the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, the Frank Porter Graham Institute, which is one of the preeminent child development centers in the United States. We are in hopes that with continued funding from the legislature, we'll be able to have a 4-year longitudinal study in short order. And if possible, we'll continue that even beyond that. Now for future plans. This is an exciting time in my estimation for the state with regard to early childhood education. There's a great deal of focus on it. There's a great deal of focus on it nationally, as evidenced by the Race to the Top Early Learning Challenge grant. However, the governor also here has, from the outset, stressed to me his belief that this is the foundation of school reform in the state of Georgia, and we take that seriously. So we are looking at ways to improve early childhood, not just in pre-K, but in the whole system, because for certain children, waiting until they get 4 years old and come into a pre-K classroom, it's too late. So we've got to assure that those children are not in a daycare. And I've seen daycare throughout my career. Daycare is not what we're shooting for. We're shooting for early childhood education from the moment a child enters a facility, where we have lesson plans, we have learning standards, and coincidentally, we've had learning standards in early childhood longer than any state in the nation, something that we ought to be extremely proud of. We've just completed a revision of those learning standards, and those standards are actually going to be articulated with the new Common Core standards, so that a child entering at birth in a facility is on a trajectory to be ready for kindergarten, ready to read at 3rd grade, ready to graduate high school. So we're very excited about that. The program that we're depending on to take us to the next level in quality is a program called Quality Rated. Quality Rated is a tiered quality rating and improvement system. There are, I think, 25 states at this point in time, there may be more now, that have these systems already in place. And what they do is first and foremost lay out standards for facilities against which they can measure themselves. These are standards that are above basic health and safety and actually move them along a continuum of quality. Those were established in this state with a group of people from around the states starting 6 years ago. The second component of this is to make sure that as you rate facilities, they have an opportunity to improve and that there are incentives to improve, because we know that this is not a low-cost approach to doing business. Facilities around the state are, by and large, small businesses. And so in order to be able to continue doing business, these facilities have to, by necessity, have financial incentives, financial payments that support the work that they do. So we're working with private foundations right now, and I'm very hopeful that in the near future we'll be announcing a large grant from a foundation that will act as a leadership grant for the rest of the state. Then the third component of this is actually communicating quality to parents, allowing them to know what constitutes quality in an early childhood setting. Then we provide a second set of information for them, which is a very easily recognizable set of symbols that represent quality. You've seen these symbols in many different settings. There are restaurants that have 1 through 4 stars. There are 4-star hotels. In a very similar manner, we're working with providers to provide those very same symbols on a voluntary basis to those facilities so that parents can easily look at it on our website, on the door of the facility, and tell what kind of quality they're going to get with the money that they spend in that facility. We're extremely pleased that we launched this on January 3rd, and this is the first time we put these statistics out, so you guys are the first. As of yesterday, at the close of business, we had 159 programs that had signed up statewide. Coincidentally, our goal for the first year is 700 centers. So we had 159 signed up within the first 16 days of operation of this program. This covers 14,000 plus children in the state, and we have another 400 individuals that have already signed up for the orientation that's required in order to get into the program. So if we are able to sign all those people up, we're on a good course to actually exceed our first year goals. Let me tell you a little about those 14,000 children that we're talking about here. Of those, 304 have known identified disabilities. 484 of those are English language learners. 4 of those are migrant children. 159 live in foster homes. 9 children are homeless. 2,167 of those children are receiving a child care subsidy. So you can tell from that many of these kids have a real high need in some aspect or another. Those are things that can prevent children from learning, that puts them at a disadvantage for a lifetime. So we're hopeful that the high quality that we can provide through this program will actually put them on a good course. Another thing that we're very excited about is in the governor's budget, a proposal to transfer the child care subsidy program from the Department of Human Services to the Department of Early Care and Learning. When the Department of Early Care and Learning was created, by statute, part of the federal child care subsidy program was actually transferred to us in that move. What was left was the actual payment process for children in the state, and it has been decided by the governor and proposed to the legislature that we move that so that we get all those programs in the Early Childhood Education Agency so that we can bring a real educational focus to the work that's done through that subsidy. Those subsidy children, again, are those who are more likely to have difficulties because they do not have the advantages of other children. We also, as some of you may be aware, but most people are surprised by this, operate a nutrition program within the Department of Early Care and Learning. We're extremely proud of this. This is a fully federally funded program. It's very similar to free and reduced lunch in the school system. That operates during the normal school year. And then we also operate a summer food program which feeds children around the state at a variety of sites throughout the summertime. Those programs are really important, of course, because we know the importance of nutrition to children and their education. Hungry children do not learn. So we want to make certain that they've got everything that they need, including the food that they need to eat. There's also a new grant program that was announced yesterday in Macon, and this will cover 42 counties in the central part of the state. It's called Caregivers Promoting Healthy Habits. Now this is a grant program. It's for early childhood centers only, and they can apply and meet the specifications of the grant to promote healthy nutrition and healthy exercise habits. This is part and parcel of a federal effort which is translating to the state and also one of the main priorities of the governor and first lady. This is also an area where we need providers, and this is somewhere the media could help us and has helped us in the past, but we really need more help. We need to be able to publicize the program, especially the summer food services program, because there are at least 20 counties in the state that has no feeding site in the summertime. So there are children in those counties we know that could benefit from the food that they would get through this program. And we're making a real effort to include every county in the state this year. That's my challenge to my staff, is to get those other 20 counties on board and to increase, as we did this year, the number of children served by 10%. There are in excess of 3 million meals served through these two programs in our agency last year. I want to share a story with you, and I'll frame it with the effort that we have made. And Nancy, I'm trying to speak English here. We've made a real effort as a department since I came aboard to engage our citizens in what we do, to make sure that they feel welcome to come in and work with us, that they feel that they can find the information that they need. And our website is set up to do that, and we continue to try to refine that to make it easier to find that information. So that's part of what we're doing. This is kind of underscored for me by a story from East Lake community and a learning center in that area. There were some children sitting at the table in a pre-K classroom. Cynthia Coleman, some of you may know Cynthia, used to be a principal here in the metro area. Cynthia shared this story with me. She said she walked up to a young fella who was drawing an owl, and she said, "I see you're drawing an owl." And he said, "Yes, ma'am, and owls are nocturnal." And this is 4-year-olds. And so she said, "That's wonderful." She walked around, there's a little boy, he was drawing a bat. She said, "What are you drawing?" He said, "I'm drawing a bat, and bats are also nocturnal." She went around the table, she was talking to the other kids. She got around the other side of the table, and there was a little girl being very quiet drawing on the other end of the table. And she said, "Darling, can you tell me what nocturnal means?" And she said, the little girl stood up, put her hands on her hips and said, "Obviously you've not been listening, ma'am." And so she told me that story, and after I got about 2 miles down the road, I was like, I think she was telling me to listen. And really and truly, it underscored for me the emphasis that I have placed on listening to the public in everything that we do, and we will continue to do that. And we include the media in that. We want to be as open with you as humanly possible, and we'll do that at every given opportunity. You know, I'm going to sum up just by saying that we've had a lot of successes in this past year, in my estimation. We have a lot of opportunity for successes in the upcoming year. And if we fail to do that, we have failed in what I consider not just to be a statutory obligation assigned to us by the governor, but in a moral obligation to the children of the state, because we understand that if we fail the young children in getting a good quality early childhood education, we failed them for a lifetime. Be glad to take any questions that you have. I apologize, I'm a little hoarse. I've got a little stroke of asthma going on. Yes?
What about the 4-year-olds who can't get into a pre-K program because they didn't get into the lottery and their parents are from an impoverished background and they can't afford to send their child to daycare? What about those 4-year-olds? What is VCAL doing to reach them?
That is a real concern for us, and we try to link those parents to non-Georgia's pre-K programs whenever possible and find assistance for them where that is possible. The stark reality is that the money in the lottery is, by the nature of the sales of the lottery, limited. We've seen flat to declining sales in the lottery, and so therefore everything that we'd like to do, and I'm looking at Representative Coleman back here, and he and I talk about this on a regular basis. Our dream would be to cover every child whose parent wanted them in a pre-K program. Unfortunately, that's not the reality. So what we try to do is to get every child served in our program. If we can't serve them, to locate another program that is equally as good for them and help them find the assistance that they needed to get in there. Yes?
Have you all surveyed pre-K providers to see if they think the 10 days and or 4.something% pay raise is going to bring back teachers?
We have not surveyed them, although informally I have talked to a number of them. There is the Georgia Child Care Association. I think they would tell you they're very much in support of additional days. And, you know, this is important for the teachers, no doubt. We cut them 10% last year because we had to make such huge cuts in the program. just to be clear, those cuts had to be made. The governor said last year, and I'll reiterate, this was not a choice between the status quo and what we did. It was a choice between what we did and the programs going broke and us not having them. So that is, that is the reality of it, and we continue to work on that on a daily basis.
Can you do the percentage breakdown between school systems and how many pre-K kids are getting to the host school systems as opposed to private? What's the percentage breakdown?
It's very close to 50-50.
Okay. Are you finding at all, the school system that I cover is looking at perhaps being a host to be able to free up some of those classrooms? Are you seeing that as a trend perhaps? Is that as school systems grow larger, it's harder and harder to be a host?
We have not seen that as a trend. We have seen historically a couple of counties that have had to do that because of the growing size of the student population. I have not heard of any school at this point that's planning on doing that this school year, nor have I heard future discussions, so I'd be interested in talking to you about who that is. Other questions? Yes.
I have sort of a two-part question. The first part, kind of going back to the beginning, you were talking about how important the pre-K experience was for kids to get them learning before they actually get to like kindergarten, first grade. Have y'all done any studies, or is there any evidence that attending pre-K is more beneficial or equally as beneficial to children than as opposed to a child is spending a lot of time with a parent who's very involved? Have y'all looked at that? Or?
We have not, and to be honest with you, I'm not familiar with studies that look at that dichotomy. We would say to you that it's extremely important that parents be the first teacher and the best teacher for the child, especially at these early ages. We do not deny that. We think that parents are essential in the pre-K process, and so we really require programs to actually get parents into the classroom. So in the spirit of your question, absolutely, parents are essential. We cannot replace the job that parents need to do. But for those kids who do not have the fortune to have parents who are able to do that, we want to be able to provide those things that will help bridge that gap for them.
And then the follow-up is just going to be, if y'all looked at how involved most parents actually are. That's something that your department has looked at.
Well, you know, I think that what we see is probably the same thing that DOE sees. There is not enough parental involvement. And I was actually, we're actually working with the company Scholastic right now to bring about a program in the state to encourage parental involvement. I'm meeting with them next week in order to talk further about that. So we're trying to promote that, but the level of parental involvement is pretty consistent, I think, from early ages on into K-12 experience, and it's not where it needs to be.
Bobby, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Talking about this very important beginning of the pipeline. One of our top 10 talks about that pipeline, and it's so important to start that beginning. Bobby gave you some of that data, but one of the pieces that really resonates with us for kids who start kindergarten behind, they tend to stay behind. So it's so important to start that early part. So what he's doing with everything from child care to daycare, pre-K are really important beginnings for our children. So now let's transition. We've got a lot of people with busy schedules, and we're trying to keep the flow going here. Superintendent John Barge is with us now. I remember last year when John came, it was about the first week right after he'd been elected, and he was getting a handle on the issues and getting a handle on the answers. Well, now after 1 year, he's leading the issues, and you can see number one there on our list is about our performance index. I'm sure John will talk a little bit about that, and some of the other pieces he's leading in that K-12 part of our education. So, Superintendent Barge.
All right. I want to thank the Georgia Partnership for Excellence in Education, Steve Dollinger, Diane Hopkins, for inviting me to come and speak with you guys today. As Steve was saying, I've been, this has got a little bit of an echo or feedback. Should I step away from it some? Been in office basically a year now, and just kind of want to tell you what has transpired in the past year, where we are at this point, and as we move forward, what are the major initiatives. Looking at the agency itself and the State Department of Education, one of our first goals was to really change the perception of the agency as, you know, from one of, let's say, a bureaucratic agency to a customer service agency, one that is responsive to the needs of our school districts, and one that when a school district hears that the Department of Education is coming, that they don't shudder in their shoes, that they see us really as a resource to help them achieve the things that they need to achieve. And I believe we've been very successful in that initiative so far. Organizationally, we kind of divided the department into two divisions. One that is the academic side of the house, and one that is the operations side of the house, to structurally bring some focus to the agency. With that, we are able to focus on the things that we need to more clearly and to be responsive to all of our stakeholders. We are a very lean agency, and in the face of the difficult economic times that we have, I've even made some decisions within my own staff. We have streamlined. I've eliminated one of my senior deputy positions. We've eliminated two of our support staff positions on the 20th floor within our office in an effort to really streamline and do the things that we need to do and be more efficient. And I think that we have been. We've been able to accomplish significantly more even with fewer resources. And to that end, just so folks are clear and we're clear with how much more we are doing, the Department of Education now is over half of my agency is funded wholly by federal dollars. You know, that creates its own initiatives or its own challenges within itself. When you're dealing with the federal dollars, job titles and job descriptions and things are very constrained and restricted, and we have to be creative in how we get the work done. But we are being successful with that. Let's see. Outside of that, one of the things that we tackled very early, and many of you reported about ad nauseum, it seemed that we dealt with this for quite a long while, is the math curriculum. We brought some changes to the high school math curriculum. The Board of Education, State Board, just voted this past board session on the list of K-8 state-funded courses, actually K-12 state-funded courses. And included in those were new mathematics courses that are aligned to the Common Core state standards. So in addition to Math 1, Math 2, Math 3, and Math 4, the integrated math, we now will have mathematics courses that are aligned to the Common Core state standards. And those courses are coordinate algebra for 9th grade, analytical geometry for 10th grade, and then from there we go into the advanced algebra and the trig and the calculus and those types of courses. We have not eliminated the integrated math courses. They will still be on the books. My communication and my concern for districts is this. One of the whole reasons that we adopted Common Core state standards across the country is to be on the same page, to have portability in our curriculums, that a student who transfers from one state to the next, that they're on the same page. There's not a gap in their learning. They don't lose anything. Common assessments are coming with that to ensure that students are learning what they need to learn. The Common Core state standards are, and you guys know this, are broad overarching principles that all of the state superintendents and the governors in the country have agreed that these are the key pieces or the key standards that these students need to learn in these courses. So in looking at the Common Core and in talking with the other states that we are involved in the PARC Consortium, which is one of the two consortiums at the national level working on the common assessments for the Common Core state standards. if we're going to take advantage of economies of scale, which is one of the reasons why we adopted Common Core state standards, so that we can all use each other's resources, we need to be on the same page with the other states. And in my discussions with my counterparts in the other states that are part of the PARC consortium, there was no other state out there that was going to teach integrated math curriculum. So we wanted to ensure that from our level, we were doing the things to make sure that our students would be able to perform on the assessments that come out of PARC and also be able to compare and have a portable curriculum with students from other states. So while we haven't eliminated the integrated math courses, from the state's perspective, in our professional development and our training of the Common Core state standards, we will do it from the algebra and the geometry approach. So hopefully that's clear for you. I don't, you know, I'm not saying there's a right or wrong way, which method is the correct method to deliver math, but it just makes sense if we're going to adopt the Common Core to take advantage of economies of scale, we do what our other states are doing. So one of the other major changes that we attacked early on is in the area of standardized testing. If you remember from the A+ Education Reform Act of 2000, that act brought us our end-of-course tests in the high school area. And the intention of that was to eliminate the Georgia high school graduation test. That, for whatever reason, never happened. So from 2000 to 2011, we've continued with the Georgia high school graduation test. So if you look at all 5 sections of the Georgia high school graduation tests, English, math, science, social studies, and writing, plus the 8 end-of-course tests, we had 13 high-stakes high school standardized tests. So the EOCTs are a much more rigorous assessment because they're given at the end of a course and they are course-specific. Those tests are able to assess deeper content knowledge for students than the graduation assessment. So we made a proposal to the state board. They approved it. We have eliminated the Georgia high school graduation test. This year's freshmen that are in school this year will not see the Georgia high school graduation test. Now, we did not eliminate the writing test. That piece is still there. They will still have to take the writing test, but the English, math, science, and social studies graduation test has been or is being phased out. This year's freshmen won't take it. Students who are in 10th and 11th grade currently, if they have passed one of the 2 end-of-course tests that are associated with that content area of the Georgia high school graduation test, so for example, if they have passed the EOCT in Math 1 or Math 2, they don't even have to take the math graduation exam. So that's for the students who are in 10th and 11th grade. So we'll have some 10th and 11th graders that don't take the graduation test at all either because they've passed their EOCTs. So that's the standardized testing. We also, as part of that transition, increased the weighting of the end-of-course test on the final grade. It's now 20% of the student's final grade in that course. One of the other things that we have worked very diligently on this year, and we continue, and the reason that I switched times up today is I was on a conference call with USAID with our accountability team, is we did submit a waiver to the U.S. Department of Education to No Child Left Behind. We have worked many, many months on the creation of a new accountability system. We've talked about that at length. I won't go into a lot of details. If you have specific questions about that at the end, I'll be glad to answer those for you. That waiver was submitted excuse me, in November to USAID. We actually submitted it before then. Senator Isaacs and I sat down with Secretary Duncan and went over it personally with him, submitted it, and then we had to resubmit within the guidelines and application of USAID in November, which we did. We then went through the peer review process that USAID set up to review all of the waivers that were submitted on the first round. There were 11 of those. 11 states have submitted waiver requests in the first round of waivers to USAID. So what they did was they basically put together folks from around the country to review states' waivers. Now, there was no one from Georgia that was on the peer review team for Georgia's application. So while there may be people in the peer review process from the state of Georgia, they did not review Georgia's application. They weren't part of Georgia's team. So we went through the peer review process. Based on that, USAID sent a letter to us asking for clarification on some items, additional information on some things, calculations in some areas, which we responded to. That was in December. We responded to them in earlier this month with our response. And that was about maybe 10 days ago that we sent that. And we had a phone call this afternoon clarifying some things. We will have one more phone call again with them next week. And then hopefully we will have something to share with you, gosh, by the end of the month is what we're hoping. We'll hear from USAID about the waiver. But we are really encouraged. I can't tell you yes or no because they haven't told us yes or no. But we are very encouraged in the dialogue process with them. It's certainly interesting. State bureaucracy is if you can imagine, is difficult. At the federal level, it's sometimes even more challenging. But the folks at USAID have been very helpful in getting the information to us that they need. We're getting back to them, and it's just kind of a communication process. So hopefully we'll have something for you positive within 2 weeks. And I think you guys know, but just to clarify, if the waiver is granted, we will not be initiating any AYP reports this summer. AYP will be done for Georgia. We will be issuing each school in the state an index score based on 100%. And once the waiver is approved, we can get down into the weeds on how that score is calculated. But the goal was really to come up with a system that goes above and beyond, corrects some of the shortcomings of No Child Left Behind, but also is very simple for people to understand. Because one of the challenges is people really don't understand what making AYP means or not making AYP means. Well, you didn't make AYP, so that means you failed. Well, it doesn't really. You've got to dig down and see why they didn't make AYP. That score, if granted, that's the way it will be coming out, and we'll talk with you about that. I've kind of been given the high sign. I've got to summarize about 3 pages real quickly. One of the other big pieces that we've been working on this year was House Bill 186 that was signed into law this past session by the governor. It brings a whole host of things to us. We supported this legislation. It's very good legislation. It complements our College and Career Ready Performance Index because, guys, quite frankly, with No Child Left Behind, in many instances the focus became passing a test. And as long as we could get X number of students past the test, then we're okay. We're in good shape. We've made AYP. Everybody's happy. Well, I think we all know that we can get students past the test, but they may be anything but ready for college and careers. And that's where we're going with the College and Career Ready Performance Index, is going beyond the test score and looking at a number of other things. And House Bill 186 is very complimentary of that. It brings us career pathways. That's one of the things that we've been working on all year, is the process of developing career pathways. We kicked off in late October, I believe, at the Rockdale College and Career Academy. We had 350 business and industry and post-secondary partners from around the state convene on the Rockdale College and Career Academy campus. We had a kickoff session with all of them about the work and about clusters, career clusters and career pathways. And then those people are the members of our advisory committees. They then broke up into their respective clusters to begin the work of each cluster identifying what are the respective pathways that we will have in Georgia in this particular cluster, using the National Career Cluster as a framework and a model, but not limiting ourselves to that. A good example that I've talked about before is the State Board just approved recently a series of courses that were proposed by the Savannah-Chatham School District that created a maritime logistics pathway. Because in order for them to provide an educated and skilled workforce for the Savannah Harbor, they needed this specific pathway in their school system to get students off on the right track and prepared for a career to support the Savannah-Chatham Harbor. So we're not limiting our committees to the national model. It's a framework, a springboard to work from. We are asking in this session, and you have probably already seen this, an extension on the timeline. It's in House Bill 713 this session. It's already passed out of committee. It passed out of committee unanimously. Because there is so much to House Bill 186, it's not just the career pathways, but it's also embedding the Common Core state standards into career and technical education courses. It's developing a soft skills assessment to assess our students on their soft skills. It is assessing students with a college and career ready assessment at the end of the 10th grade, and then developing remedial or transitional courses for those students if they're not college ready. There's so much to that legislation, we did not have time to get it all done by this fall. And having been in the field as a principal and a teacher and a curriculum director, the worst thing that you can do for a high school is to put out new rules year after year. Because what happens is you start a new rule with a freshman entering freshman class. And if we start part of House Bill 186 this fall, and then we start another part of House Bill 186 the next fall, then our districts wind up with different cohorts of students in their schools on different rules, and it's very difficult for them to manage and maintain. So we did not want to piecemeal the legislation. It's too powerful, it's too important. And so in order to implement it all at one time and to implement it well, we asked for the additional timeline. So that's why we did that. Just so you know, and I think you've probably heard from Matt, I do have 3 different advisory groups that I work with on a regular basis. In fact, I just met with my parent advisory group yesterday for the second time since taking office. So I have a parent advisory group, I have a student advisory group, I have a teacher advisory group, and they regularly come and we meet and I listen to them and I take their input. One of the things that came out of that is the revised website. That came out of requests from our parents. Is our website was too difficult to use. It was too difficult to maneuver. They needed a more user-friendly website, and that's kind of how that has come about. That website is going to come online. We've already done a soft launch within the agency, so all of our agency people are seeing it, but because of what we're doing is tweaking and making the corrections that we need to make on it before it launches live to the general public. And we're hoping that that happens within the next 2 weeks. So within the next couple of weeks, you will see a new website from the DOE, and hopefully you'll find it more useful. I'm not going to get into that last part because I know you guys probably have questions and I'm running short on time. I do want to tell you that one of the things that I did this year, and some of you guys have reported it in the past, you know, it's teaching is not the easiest profession in the world, and because most everybody has been to school, that makes everybody an expert, and our teachers get the short end of the stick a lot of times, and I wanted to encourage teachers. The data's all there. You know, so many of them drop out of the profession within the first 3 to 5 years. I wanted to create an opportunity and communicate to teachers that they are valuable. So one of the things I did this year was I created an award from the superintendent's level. It's called the Fountain Award, and it is awarded 4 times a year. The first award has already been made this year. And it's named, the award itself is named in honor of Monty Fountain, who was a teacher of mine when I was in high school, that he had a significant impact on my life and me being where I am today. And so this award has been created. It's not for students. It is for adults. Anyone in this room can go to our website, to our recognitions website, pull off the application from the website, and any one of you can nominate a teacher that you had who made an impact, a significant impact on your life. And so it's really, really an encouragement to teachers for an adult to come back and say, you know, you really changed my life. And that means a lot, having been a teacher. For students to come back and tell me that, it means a lot. But for an adult to come back and tell someone that, I think is even more powerful. So that's one of the other things that we're doing just to try to help. You know, it doesn't cost a lot of money, but it's certainly something we can do to help encourage the teachers in the profession. So I'll leave it at that, and if you guys have any particular questions, I'll be glad to try to answer those. Yes.
The College and Career Ready Performance Index, in your back and forth with federal officials, have they suggested, like, has that proposal for the index evolved at all? Have they suggested major changes to it? Are there, what are the conversations that you've been having with them been like?
Not major changes. Most of it has been clarifications. You know, to us, some things may make perfect sense the way that they're written, but the way that they're received on that end, they don't. And so a lot of what we've had to do is basically clarifying for them how certain calculations are made. I think one of the early things that that did come that was probably not included in the initial waiver request was our flagging concept that we use in the index, and I think that many of you guys have seen that, but it's maintaining our subgroups that from No Child Left Behind, because that piece of AYP is good for us to look at subgroups. But that flagging system was not initially in the original waiver. We still had our subgroups, but the flagging system was more clear for them, and it's actually better than No Child Left Behind, because in No Child Left Behind you could kind of play a game with your subgroups, and that is a subgroup only counted for your school if you had 40 students for that particular group, and you know, if you had 41 and you knew that you were struggling, you know, I'm pretty sure that there are schools out there that have interrupted a student's enrollment or two, so that they end up only having to report 39 instead of 41, and so it doesn't impact their AYP status. In this flagging system, if you have one student in a subgroup, it's reported.
Is the index, like, regardless of whether or not Georgia's granted the waiver, will you do the index anyway? Like, you know, on the
Yes.
answer they say no? Okay.
Yes, we will. Because we do feel like it is a much more powerful tool for our schools. It will actually drive their school improvement process. Yes?
This may be a silly question, but No Child Left Behind has not been reauthorized by Congress for several years.
Right.
What is the guillotine hanging over to you to say, we're just not going to do it? Because I know in my county we get 3% federal funding. If we had to live with that 3% of federal funding in order to not be tied down, I think that my school system would say, fine, keep your money. So I'm wondering, what's the guillotine kind of hanging over the state?
Well, I would love it if we could, but all of the school improvement money that comes to the state for our struggling schools is based on No Child Left Behind and AYP.
So you're talking Title I fund?
It could potentially be Title I funding, but that school improvement grant money, you know, it could be Title I, but I wouldn't go so far as to say it's all Title I. But
so that's really the only thing hanging over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think Texas actually did that.
I was going to say, there's a couple of states
Yeah.
that keep your money.
But you know, in our particular case, I don't know that right now we could afford it.
What's your take on either the reinstatement of the State Charter School Commission and/or requiring systems to fund charter schools?
Well, my take is that that is a decision between our judicial system and our legislative system. I'm going to make sure that however that washes out, that the students in our state are provided the best education possible. I mean, that's not my call. So, yes.
All of the stuff that everybody's kind of talking about today rolls into the whole idea of the education pipeline. We're reforming stuff beginning at the pre-K level, and then everything with the College and Career Performance Index and the governor's new Go Build Georgia initiative. Where did we fall off the map so far to need all of this stuff to happen right this moment? Like, why now? What happened in the past 20 years?
It would have been really good if you could have heard Bill Daggett speak yesterday right here in the studio. What happened is the world changed and the educational system didn't. And that's the clearest answer. And so now we are creating a product. When I say a product, a student, a graduate, who is not prepared for the world that they're about to see. And you can see that in the fact that, I've spoken with folks here in Atlanta. We have 5,000 technology jobs in Metro Atlanta unfilled because the people don't have the skills to match the jobs. So because technology has brought us so many changes in our world, we haven't changed the system. And so what we're producing and so it's urgent that we change for our kids' sake.
I did hear Mr. Daggett's comments, and I stumbled in because I thought I think I was in the wrong place. But given that, one statement that you made I'd like to get your comment on is you can have equity or excellence, but you can't have both. And I wonder...
Well, you can't have both, but his comment was, it's really, really expensive.
Okay. And do you find that, are we trying to do that across the board, equity and excellence, and we're failing miserably at both?
I wouldn't say that we're failing, because if you didn't hear his entire comments, this is still the best educational system in the world. And our schools are improving, but they're not improving at the rate that the world's changing, which is creating that gap, and which is what we're trying to change. Yes?
Are there any programs or things in place or being talked about that could support the SIG grant schools once the funding's run out after a few years, like anything to kind of help them?
I don't have anything particular that I could answer that question for you.
Like, do you think that after the grant is through, those schools are going to be self-sustaining, or do you think they're going to...
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's the goal.
Last question.
Can you please comment on, I guess, what your philosophy is on the growing role of the federal government in education? I mean, you mentioned half your department's budget comes from federal funds.
Well, I'll answer that question like this. I've had the opportunity to meet 4 of the Republican presidential candidates over the course of the last several months, and I've asked that question of all 4 of them. And one of them, to me, provided the best answer, and that was constitutionally they don't have a role. But right now, to eliminate that department would be a very difficult thing to do. We would have a very difficult time as a state if we did not have the money that we have right now coming from the Federal Department of Education. Do I like it, and is that my desire? Not really, because typically with money come strings, and sometimes those hamper what we're trying to do. But this particular candidate's response was the best thing to do would be to begin to unbundle that department and to downsize it. And I think you can do that and still provide states what they need, but definitely streamline.
Which candidate was that?
And with that,
I shall not say a word.
Thank you very much,
Yes.
Superintendent Barnes. We
Thank you.
appreciate that. As we transition here, let me just add to his answer briefly, your question about trying to catch up and what's going on with that pipeline. I think it's kind of interesting that last week Georgia received a high ranking, 7th in the country, on some of the pieces that we have in place to help us. Well, we finally had those pieces in place, and while that's with Superintendent Barge's leadership, those things are a strong accountability system, high standards, real clear pathways. We never had those before. When I came here from Virginia, for example, it's one of the highest performing states in Ohio, they've had some of those pieces in place for decades, and they just keep cranking continuous improvement. We're just now rolling out our student information system across the state. That's another important piece. Oath asked that question earlier. So we finally had those pieces in place. It's not going to be easy for us to leap over a lot of states, but we're going to start catching up because we now have that foundation, and we're getting recognized for having those pieces in place finally. We just have to start getting those results. We're going to take a 5-minute break. If you want to stand in place, we're going to rearrange up here to get ready for our last piece with our legislators, and we'll talk about what's going on in the Gold Dome. 5 minutes.